What's up, everybody? So this is just a continuation of a previous stream. It just started buffering incessantly and couldn't get itself out of it. So hopefully it'll be a bit better now. Springfield Lakes is this development. So this is the sort of more affordable living. You can see the type of stuff that they've built here, you know. Public tennis court, school, artificial lakes. I wonder if people are stuck on the other stream still. Well, not much I can do about that. I guess they'll have to work it out. Sorry, people. Wow, it's like bustling little strip mall. When I first came out here, they had built one of these two lakes that are here, and some of these buildings, like real estate office, that tower with the clock, we saw that go up. So yeah, this was all a single parcel of land, 6,000 acres, owned by the army. And the developer, Springfield Land Corporation, Maha Sinnathamby and his partner, it took them about 20 years since acquiring the parcel of land that was just out of their reach financially, but they somehow managed to get it. They found a way. They found a way to make the deal happen. I have a friend who's a real estate investor, Kiwi Steve, and he says the way you know if it's a good deal in real estate is if you want to rob the bank to do it. That's how good it is, that you just go rob the nearest bank if that's what it takes to do the deal. And that's his yardstick. If the property doesn't make him get that want to rob the bank feeling, he won't buy it. The deal's got to be that good. He'll hold out for a deal that's good. And very, very savvy property investor. He's done very well. Just retired very young. Bought into the Bay Area in the last financial crash, 2007, 2008, and no entry. Never looked back from that. So yeah, these guys managed to get this parcel of land, but then they had this land and, you know, didn't have the money or the means to develop anything on it. So it took them almost 20 years to get that deal up and running and rolling. But now the guy is a multi-billionaire. You know, he owns all of these buildings, this car park, everything, and yeah, they can sublease the buildings or the shopping malls or whatever it is, but they keep the underlying land, they keep the ground rights. So ultimately, you know, they never sell it, and that's the ideal way to do real estate if you can. Use other people to spend their money developing the land. You just keep the land and get a royalty. So in this case, they did a deal with a large developer in Australia to build 25,000 homes, and they would sell house and land packages. And going back to 2007, I guess, in this area, Springfield Lakes, you could have probably got a house and land for like $150,000, 200,000 Australian, not much more than 100K US. And back then it was the middle of nowhere, but now it's just, you know, kind of a regular old Australian suburb. So now we'll take a drive around Lakeside Avenue. So, you know, one thing I'd like people to notice as we check out this place is, when you hear about UN Agenda 21 and the 5G and the smart cities and we're all going to die, is this what you think? Like, this isn't so scary, right? A smart city, like, this this really, like, would it be awful if you had to live in a place like this with lakes and a mall and trees and golf courses? You know, I don't. I think the Satanists have way worse plans for us than this type of thing. You know, way worse. So this is why I don't see smart cities as being the same thing as 5G. But I also don't really buy into the 5G fear. I haven't looked at it really deeply. I'll admit that. I'm claiming to be an expert on the issues with 5G, but I do understand quite a lot about telecommunications infrastructure and how it works, and cell phone towers and things like that. And, you know, ultimately all these technologies are just radio. You know, TV is radio, cell phone, wireless internet is radio, lasers are radio, microwave oven is radio. So we are surrounded by radio waves and transmitters all the time. We're being bombarded with them. Now, is that bombardment bad? Quite possibly. You know, it's the type of thing where it would be very difficult to look at health effects and pinpoint it to any one thing. You know, is the rise in autism because of electromagnetic radiation? Is it because of vaccines? Or does the electromagnetic radiation excite things like the aluminum that are in the vaccines? What about the aerosol spraying and, you know, the nanoparticles that they're putting in the air with that we breathe in? You know, does that get further excited by the electromagnetic radiation? This is the type of thing that I speculated in Crypto Beast 17, I think it was, about the California fires. You can read that post at burners.me. I did a long post with a lot of the research, and then I did a video going through the post. And Pacific Gas and Electric, people think that this is fucking bullshit conspiracy theory, but they have an actual program to put massive solar panels in space and to beam the energy down as microwave energy to a ground receiving station. And that was in Sebastopol, California, not far from where I used to live. And this is when the fires happened in 2017. Sebastopol was ground zero of it. And, you know, I published in that post a power purchase agreement that PG&E signed with, I think they're called Solarex, the space power company. So why would an energy utility sign a power purchase agreement to purchase multiple megawatts of power from space if it wasn't possible for them to purchase multiple megawatts of power from space, right? Like, okay, do a press release, put it on your website, that's one thing, but signing a contract to purchase the electricity, you know, that suggests to me that it's a real thing. Like, you know, how's the corporate lawyers, PG&E is a publicly traded company, how can they execute a contract if it's impossible for that contract ever to be delivered? So, you know, I think that's real. I also posted the patents, or some of the patents, on my website for exactly this form of space-based generation of power. And the guys involved in this company, Solaris, and if you look at their background, this is like, you know, head of satellites for Boeing or Hughes or whatever. You know, like these are top level people in the space program that have had careers at the top of the whole thing, then moving on to do this startup, you know, with massive amounts of funding and government backing and everything like that. So yeah, did they, in analysing their space-based power transmission to these ground stations, did they account for, you know, the other totally classified project of strategic stratospheric aerosol injection and spraying these metal particles in the air, you know, and what that does for their weather modification and geoengineering technologies? You know, was that two projects that should have collaborated with each other, but because of the compartmentalization, the scientists involved didn't, and somehow the PG&E beaming of power got excited further than it should have in this, you know, highly charged particulate atmosphere, and that led to these catastrophic wildfires. I don't know. That's certainly one thing that needs to be investigated, and I'm not sure if that happened or not, even after looking into it. But there's a lot of I find PG&E to be in general quite a suspicious company. A lot of Rothschild involvement. They own massive amounts of California's water infrastructure, which I think not many people understand, that at least half the reservoirs in California are owned by the gas and electricity company, right? Like, what? It's not a water utility. But I digress. So anyway, is there a danger from 5G of what if that is what happened, that the energy field got excited by atmospheric stuff that wasn't supposed to be there and made it a worse outcome than they were expecting? Yeah, I mean, I think that is a possibility with the 5G, but you're talking about high frequency waves, where the size of the wave itself is very, very small. And there's already frequencies at those high frequencies being broadcast around us. That's my understanding of it. But the transmission of the device and the cell towers, and could that be turned on and weaponized against us? Well, yeah, absolutely it could. Absolutely it could. But there's plenty of shit they already have that can be weaponized against us anyway, including conventional cell phone tower infrastructure. And then look at what do they choose to weaponize us with? Is information, psyops, propaganda. So they're already doing that. Why do they need to zap us with 5G? But I heard Alex Jones the other day talking about no electronic radiation zones, and that becoming a desirable real estate play in the future. And I think that's a very interesting idea. I've also heard about silent temples where people build Faraday cages or whatever, and maybe that's what Epstein's temple was all about, where it's just a chance that you can get somewhere and not be subjected to all this type of electromagnetic bombardment. But I don't know. I don't live like that. I've got Wi-Fi. I've got cell phones, iPads, wireless shit. I'm sure my wife would love to have a house where there was no cell phones or Wi-Fi, but she married an internet guy, so unfortunately it's one she's probably not going to win. What do we got here? Springfield Anglican, their future. Yeah, well, that was never there before. Wow, look at this. So we got some high-rises, we got a Bunnings. So that big high-rise building over there, that's where my office was, on the top floor of there, shared with the developer company. And let's go in this way. Brookwater and Augustine Heights. Yeah, this does have a bit of a New Jersey kind of look to it, for sure. So yeah, this is still part of the smart city of Springfield. And what makes it a smart city? Well, something that you have to realize about in the world of smart cities is that they don't really know that. It's just a bunch of marketing shit. And we saw stuff that we came up with, defining what is a smart city, what would be possible, some of the use cases and everything. We saw that being turned into big corporate presentations from some of the largest companies in the world. And I won't name the companies. I'm probably still contractually bound by non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that, even though these guys basically ripped us off. But the big companies are trying to figure out what is a smart city so that they can sell it to the customer for a smart city. Now, who's the customer? Well, this guy here, Maha Sinnathamby, was a customer, a billionaire real estate developer. And one thing that I would say about every real estate person I've ever met in my life, which is a lot, is they don't like to spend money. They're always broke. They never got any cash. They're asset rich and cash poor. And this guy Maha is the greatest example of this. I said the other day, he was born in a mud hut with no running water and no electricity. So you think that guy likes to spend money? He just, he'll turn the lights out in every room of his house, even the rooms that he and his family are sitting in, just to save money on the electricity costs, even though he's created all of this. And look, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's, the guy's worth a lot more money than me, so who am I to say that that's a bad strategy? It's probably a very clever strategy. But, his plan is build a smart city. Sure, you can come and build it on my land, and I'll rent the land to you and spend as much money as you want on your smart city. So you then have to go find the other people that are going to spend the money. And in this case, Telstra already spending money on fibre to the premises. They tried their own thing, which was called the NBN, which is a National Broadband Network of Australia. Telstra was a major driver of, even though technically it was like a public countrywide thing, that a horizontal market open to many participants, and kind of a disaster. They're trying to put in this fibre infrastructure to this incredibly remote country where we've got cattle stations in the outback where to get to your mailbox from the house is an 8 to 10 hour drive. People can fly their plane for 3 hours and still not have left their property. So it's fibre to the premises, and giving everyone equal access to broadband is not really the best way to go for a country like this. You should be doing satellite, or what Google's talking about with their balloons, or even drones that never land or whatever, and beefing up the Wi-Fi infrastructure. So 5G is, as I understand it, probably not a bad answer to some of Australia's telecommunications issues. But the broad plan of the UN Agenda 21 is, based on underlying mega trends, and smart cities is a mega trend. And really what it is, I guess, is urbanization, and looking at the projection for the world's population growth. Where is the world's population now? Of what we have, 7.5 billion, 8 billion, and where's it gonna go in the future? So we can say, well, we think between now and 2050, the Earth's population is going to go up to 9 billion. So there's going to be another 1.5 billion people coming. So that's a country the size of China or India, also being added to the world, that we've got to plonk down somewhere. That's another 5 United States that we're going to get in the world. So where are these people going to come from? And the demographic answer to that is that they're going to come from the cities, that already most of the world's population lives in cities. And as the world's population grows, most of that population growth is also going to be in the cities. And I can't argue with that, and I don't even think really that there's anything wrong with that. It's kind of better if people are going to create pollution, then give them less space, compact them in, increase the density of where they are, and then you've got all their energy requirements can be met in one place, and all their waste processing can be done in one place. If you spread humans evenly across the globe, then you also have to spread power, water, food, and waste processing evenly across the globe, and that's kind of hard to do. And so that's sort of the thinking when they're talking about these smart cities is, okay, there's a demographic trend, more people are going to be in cities, so the cities that are there are going to get bigger, and the real estate values in those cities are all going to massively increase as demand increases, so that people will get wealthier if they're in the cities. And so what can the tech industry do to make money from that? Well, they can sell as much new shit as they can on a citywide scale, because that's an easier way to reach the population. And you think, how many cities are there in the world? There's actually less than you'd think, or less than I thought anyway. There's the number of cities with 1 million or more people in the world, I think is, just look at the population, right? If it's 1,000, that's 1 billion people. 1,000 cities of 1 million people. We only have 7 billion. So, there's a small list of cities and towns that's in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands. It's sort of a manageable number for the tech industry to deliver their products to have a salesperson going around, to have like local utilities. The new urbanism theorists have done a lot of work in this space. Is there room for super high-rise? Close to the train station, you could have these giant apartments. Well, people have been working on this stuff for centuries now, and there's, to live in a city where you have an apartment kind of close to the central, middle of everything, it's cool. If you've ever done it, it's great. It's so convenient to have everything there. You just walk outside your door and you got it. So, there's a lot of things to be said for urbanism, but then what about the environment? And if everyone lives in cities, how can they even appreciate the environment? And if they don't appreciate it, then will they just be more inclined to trash it? And, that's one issue. And to me, environmental problems are very, very significant. That's something that my family is quite involved with on the philanthropy side. But I don't think the climate change is the issue. I think that climate change is probably the project name for their geoengineering weapon system. John Kerry came to Indonesia when he was Secretary of State, and he said, look, you guys need to get on board with the program. I can't remember what the program was. I think probably developing offshore oil and gas reserves there. Get on board with the program or climate change is going to get you. He's threatening them with climate change. Well, how can you threaten a nation with this thing if it's just about a carbon tax? Like, we're creating more pollution, so we want a worldwide tax. I think that's too simplistic a way of looking at things. I think it's more, we have weather modification technology and we're using it everywhere relentlessly. It's causing all kinds of side effects like terrible fires and things like that. How do we get away with it? Well, we need a distraction. Let's call it climate change and say that it's because of all the, these fossil fuels, and that'll help drive our new solar and wind industry. And, something that I think is probably not widely understood about the solar industry is it's sort of a byproduct of the semiconductor industry, because a lot of the chip fabrication plants that are made for like Intel, companies like that, when the new generation chip comes out, those silicon wafer manufacturing plants aren't any good anymore for Intel. They're not going to make old generation chips anymore, but those factories can quite easily be repurposed to make photovoltaic solar panels, which is similar kind of silicon wafer technology in a way, right? So that's why China is so big in solar, because they're massive in semiconductors and they've got massive manufacturing plants for that. And then, wind power, I'm a big fan of. I think it's been proven for such a long time. Boats use it. You can sail around the world with it, and it works at night. You can still use wind power with storage if you want for times when it's not windy, but actually doesn't need a lot of wind at all to make those turbines move around. Geothermal power, that's great. Hydroelectric power is great. All these forms of renewable energy, I think, are excellent. But there's people in Australia now, people much more wealthy and successful than me, who are really pushing this 100% renewable energy. Australia should become the first nation in the world to have 100% renewable energy. And it's not a realistic goal for this country. The bulk of this country's wealth is in minerals and mining, and that not only does it need to be extracted from the earth, which takes a massive amount of energy, but it then needs to be moved around the earth and then refined as well, and then moved around further. So the amount of energy required to produce and refine minerals economically is absolutely enormous, and to do those things with solar is so energy inefficient. Because it just doesn't make sense. You can't run an aluminum smelter on solar panels. So so it's kind of a silly goal, and it would be a better goal to just promote the removal of pollution. Pollution is the biggest environmental problem we have. It's a critical, terrible, terrible problem. You've probably heard about these floating islands out of the Pacific full of just plastic waste and everything that just get accumulated and now are miles and miles long. And they're taking submarines to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, the deepest parts of the ocean, and they're finding candy wrappers down there. This is fucked up shit. So I don't know if the answer is we're going to get robots that will eat all this stuff up, or we're going to train some kind of genetically engineered fish that are going to go and chew up all the plastic in the ocean. But George Carlin's comments about the earth and plastic, if you've never seen that, check out his comedy monologue on that humans will be gone, the earth will still be here, the creatures, the animals, the forests will still be here, and plastic will still be here. And plastic gets made from petroleum, so we need oil to make plastic, but it can be made from hemp. And Henry Ford supposedly had a car built out of hemp that could be run on hemp. So the entire industry completely renewable, completely organic, and obviously we still don't have that anything like that today, even though the technology exists. It's well proven. It's not that much of a stretch, but that's the type of thing that powerful people are probably going to try and shut you down if you do. So yeah, here we are. This is a smart city, driving through a smart city, and it really doesn't seem so bad at all, does it? I don't think the end of the world is people living in smart cities or having a new wireless device technology that operates on a higher frequency. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew and Jimmy Savile, that's the end of the world, people. A fucking Luciferian pedo cult, the Finders, kidnapping your children, sex trafficking them. That's a real problem that we have right now, that we don't need any future, any technology, any invention to bring this problem in. This problem is there right now. So that, I think, all of this Agenda 21 fear porn kind of stuff is just a distraction away from the real problems that we face today. And I feel the same way about the AI as well, like the Terminator situations and everything. Scary as that is, what about the human animal hybrids, growing pigs that have human organs inside them just to slaughter them for the organs? There's some major ethical issues that the world is facing to do with science that's happening right now today, and we don't get to have a debate about those issues because the areas of discussion are kind of mapped out and framed for us. So a great video today. Bill Smith, I don't know if he still goes by Real Bill Smith or what, Bill Smith News maybe, on YouTube, talking about the space program. And this the journalist at the New York Post, who's the one person who got the exclusive photo of Jeffrey Epstein being wheeled out the trolley that absolutely proves conclusively that Epstein is dead, even though the ears on the corpse don't match the ears on other photos of Epstein. But this one journalist, it turns out that he also reported on the mysterious suicide of the doctor who was in the WikiLeaks Hillary Clinton emailing from Haiti about how the response on the scene was so terribly messed up. Yeah, this doctor stabbed himself to death. He's a heart surgeon, but missed when he stabbed himself to death, I guess. I don't know. But Another suspicious one on the Clinton body count, and yep, this one journalist reported on that. He also reported on Stanley Kubrick's death, and Stanley Kubrick died the night that Eyes Wide Shut was shown to Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman and a bunch of Hollywood executives. And then apparently this journalist's name was actually even in the film, in the Eyes Wide Shut movie. And then his name is an anagram. If you rearrange the letters in it, it makes the name Royal Lancer. And Prince Andrew is the captain of the Royal Lancers. The UK has a group called Division 6. Thanks to Ghost Crab for pointing this one out to me. And Division 6 is doing their online cyber intelligence operations, trolling, reputation attacks, all that good stuff that we know different corporations and state actors are doing on the internet. The UK one at the moment is called Division 6. So this area here, part of the Brookwater development, I think we're near the golf course, but not in the golf course. And then look, what do we have there? A gated community, Kempson Court. Wow. So this is not what you'd call ghetto, but probably like a sort of, lower income area, lower to middle income, but it's all pretty nice, right? Like pretty kind of standard. Man, none of these buildings at all were here when I was doing stuff down here. And look, they're still building it. So pretty amazing when you think about just you're gonna buy a piece of land and you're gonna build a city on it over 30 years, and that's gonna be your legacy to the world. Like when you pass away, you made a city for 150,000 people, and they live in it and they like it, and it's pretty cool, right? Like, I mean, it's not a bad claim to fame. And plus, you leave all your kids as billionaires. Nice little bonus. So I don't know if there's anything else I really wanted to talk about today. Anyone got any questions? Maybe I'll talk about some of the things that go into a smart city and some of thinking about what that is. So cashless society, that'll be one of them. We already have that in New Zealand and Australia. It's actually pretty cool. I can just go up to anywhere like a parking garage or cafe or a restaurant and either double click my I guess that's what I do. Double click my iPhone and then it comes up with a Face ID, looks at me, and then boom, touch my phone against the payment, and that's it. I've paid for it. So I think they have that all around the world. Obviously, it's a capability in the iPhone technology, but New Zealand also has electronic banking that's really good. If you transfer money to another person or company at another bank in New Zealand, they'll get the money within an hour on the same day. So that's pretty awesome. And it's free to transfer as well. And so what that has done is basically it's eliminated checks. People just don't send checks in New Zealand. It's debit card, credit card, which are near field communication, paywave, or it's instant bank transfer. And it's cash is just becoming increasingly rare. Like you really don't need to have it for any reason, except maybe if there's things that you want to buy that you don't want to go through this system or aren't available for purchase in the electronic system, which increasingly is not very much, but certainly there's like someone might be on the side of the road selling a bunch of tomatoes or something. Increasingly even those people have mobile EFTPOS machines, but EFTPOS being electronic funds transfer at point of sale, so like a little credit card machine. People don't really have Square in New Zealand. I don't know about Australia, I haven't seen one here. But that type of payment technology hasn't really taken off. But is that really scary? I mean, it's damn convenient, right? And I think if they're going to ban cash, they're going to do it anyway, whether there's a smart city or not. So I don't think that part of it's too scary. The integration of public transport is a big part of a smart city, just having cameras on all the trains that go back to a central location, traffic lights being hooked up and synchronized with buses, making it easy to find car parks. That sort of thing is very much part of their vision. The renewable energy, and then a lot of people living in smart homes, smart apartments. They have a Nest thermostat, they have a Ring doorbell. All that sort of stuff is happening already. And again, with or without smart cities, that's sort of happening. But a smart city is constant concentration of many units that have those sort of smart devices. And the surveillance society, we're living in it. London has more cameras per square mile than anywhere else in the world, and they're still having all these terrible problems with knife attacks and acid attacks and driver in a car attacks and everything. So cameras doesn't solve your security problems. Gun bans don't solve your security problems. Immigration definitely doesn't solve your security problems. But having all that stuff integrated together to a social credit score type system, it's definitely a scary scenario. But only if you're on the wrong side of the system, on the wrong side of Big Brother, right? But it's a problem for anyone who is interested in being honest, because the government isn't honest. We know the government lied. The government told us that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. The government told us that they're going to lock her up if Trump was elected. Hillary Clinton was going to be in jail. Government told us that WikiLeaks Julian Assange was only facing one charge. And then once he got into the prison, they changed their mind and they threw the book at him. So it's not really that reliable a source of truth. And we know that politicians lie. That's kind of what it is to be a politician. And we know that the media lies and reinforces the lies of the politicians. And so this is what scares me about the social credit score, is if you want to maintain your score, you're going to have to give the correct answer, which means confirming lies. And that's a scary scenario. So I don't know how we fix that. My philosophy is that you can't stop progress. Like, this stuff is going to come anyway. But should we all panic? Head for the hills, doom and gloom, the sky's falling, we're all stuffed? Or should we try to, make it better? Find a way that we can make it good instead of bad. That's what I'm all about. Now, hopefully you can see that train up ahead there. This was a really big deal in Springfield, putting in a train link, because that would connect this area to the city of Brisbane, which this was pretty remote from Brisbane 15 years ago. Now it's just another suburb of Brisbane, Gold Ipswich Triangle is kind of becoming this vast urban sprawl, kind of like, New Jersey, New York, Eastern Seaboard type of thing. Orion Lagoon. Never heard of that before. Something to check out. There was a lot of corruption and scandals went around this deal. There's a bridge. I don't know if it's the bridge that I'm going on right now, but a bridge called the Paul Pizzali Bridge. And Paul Pizzali was the mayor of Ipswich, and I think he's in jail right now. But there was a bunch of scandals going on where the local politicians were getting paid off by the property developers and stuff like that. And although I don't think there was ever any actual arrests or prosecutions relating to these particular property developers who did this development, just property developers in the area, all right? So let me clarify that. I've got no ill will at all to the Greater Springfield Land Corporation, Maha Sinnathampi, his family. It was a deal that sort of worked out, but it was ahead of its time, and ultimately we had to shut the business down to pursue bigger opportunities. And as nice as this smart city is, you should see the type of thing that they're building in Dubai and Qatar and Bahrain. I personally never went to Saudi, but a lot of the guys in my team did. I heard all about it. And they had one there called King Abdullah Economic City. That was a $130 billion development, which is now built, I believe. And there was an American company, name escapes me, but it wasn't anyone that I'd ever heard of. You probably wouldn't have heard of it anyway. And they're just a private building contractor, and they got into the idea of building these smart cities. This company got a $36 billion deal in Saudi Arabia for just one deal for one private corporation, and they're building in China. They were building 100 smart cities. I don't know if that number's gone up or not. All over Africa, they're building these smart cities, and it's interesting if you're in the West, because it's not something that you're probably even aware is going on. You just don't see it. Like Europe is built, and they might put up a new high-rise building or something, tear down one building, put up a new one, whatever, but they're not going and building a new city of 150,000 people anywhere. They're not putting in a development of 25,000 homes. And in the US, the same. The biggest is 2,000 units. This of 150,000 people is actually pretty small by the standards of some of the developments going on around the world. The problem about being in this as a business and trying to profit from the mega trend towards smart cities is that the development cycles is very, very long. These are 30-year projects, and at the end of the project, when it's built and all the people are living there, then your numbers add up. You've got all these homes that can pay you so much money per month, and you can clip the ticket, and then it's all great. But the problem is you have to hang in there from day one, where there's no people and no homes, and it's a piece of paper, and you're waiting on planning approval and everything like that. So you can't really enter the smart city business on day one as a vendor. But the problem is if you enter halfway through, and that's what, we probably came into this deal 15 years into their 30-year development. And from our point of view, almost nothing was built, right? We looked around and there was almost none of the stuff that you're seeing here now. I don't even know where I am, actually. This is all so unfamiliar to me, these high-rise buildings and everything. Even this road, I think, wasn't built when we came in here. But so to us, we looked around and we're like, wow, none of this is built yet. great, we're getting in at the absolute earliest stage. As the city comes to life, be able to help shape the technical evolution. Okay, so this is my old office here, this sort of bluey grey building with the red bit of the slide. The windows at the top left was eco living. Education city. So they have a health city, they have an education city, they build hospitals and hotels and malls and schools and all of this. This is all for private education. This and that. A lot of it is foreign language students. So they have a requirement to train massive numbers of pilots in India and China. But in order to learn to be a pilot, you also have to learn to speak English, because that's the language used internationally in aviation. So they would send them down here to learn English in like a year, as part of being a pilot. And very lucrative business for the private education providers of that type of thing. So, I don't know, I guess I'll come back to other things that make a smart city a smart city. I mean, I mentioned the education city and health city that they're doing here, and both of it, I mean, they love the smart hospitals over there in the Middle East, and the budgets are basically unlimited when it comes to a hospital. So it will be the biggest, cleanest, flashiest hospital. It will have every single piece of equipment. It'll be the latest, greatest, everything, and tons of it. Doesn't mean you really get a higher standard of healthcare. Not necessarily, and particularly because then, they can spend the money and they can build the infrastructure, but a lot of times the local populace just doesn't have the skill base, and so they have to bring people in. And Dubai offers no tax and a low cost of living, kind of not a bad quality of life for expats, and they bring these people in from all over the world, seduced by the high dollars, to come and take the jobs. But does that ultimately leave, the local culture and community better off because those skills remain within the country? Not really. And look, I'm not going to say too much about my personal thoughts about particular countries, because I think that's only going to bite me in the ass in the future. So I'll reserve some of those judgments. I'll come back to what else makes a smart city. So smart hospitals, recycling, and it's having some kind of high-tech waste processing solution, like a big recycling plant. That's sort of part of it. Surveillance, definitely. One thing that I never saw discussed in any of the smart city proposals that I was exposed to, and that I think should be an element in every single one of them, is looking after people with disabilities. And that's what I think should differentiate a smart city from a dumb city, is what does the city do to look after the most vulnerable members of society? And things like, they have apps now where you can find out where's the nearest handicap bathroom to you, but it might be inside a store and at the back of the store. And if you're blind, you still need guidance to get from the front of the store to the back of the store to find the bathroom. So someone going in and recording auditory instructions, or using beacons for navigation, or that sort of thing, solving that problem of how does a blind person find the nearest disabled bathroom, is something that can be solved technologically fairly simply without a large amount of expense, and would make an enormous difference in the lives of the people who need it. People in wheelchairs, paths, you'll see I'm along a bike path here. That's a big part of Burning Man as well that people may not realize, is that you ride everywhere on a bike. Like, it's the most effective way to get around Burning Man is cycling. So it's so vast, and you don't want to be waiting in the queue at Burning Man to put gasoline in your car when you could be out there partying and enjoying it. Opperman Drive, Opperman. So, is that a bad thing to have cities where a lot of people cycle? No, I think that's a great thing. It should totally be promoted. I'm a cyclist. I'm in favour of bike lanes being all through cities. So, I don't know, like, and then the other side of it, well, what's going to be in the... It seems like maybe coming back. It's weird that the signal would just drop out right there. Buffering again. I don't know if anyone can hear me. This is what it was doing before. It just on my screen, it just shows that it's constantly buffering. So this was Telstra's big experiment. Fibre to the premises, smart city. What a lost opportunity. This could be an amazing place where they could test all their latest high-tech shit. Their 5G, their 6 somewhere in Australia.